Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you had a good morning. So, if you watched this morning's live stream, we talked about having the bearish narrative for the day. We took a loss, and then we even saw ICT himself on Twitter explain how he took a loss in the morning. Then he kind of finished the morning session by scalping NQ back to profitability. We did not do that. We said we were going to wait until the afternoon session. We weren't going to try and trade in low probability conditions. So here we are. I'm going back to the daily to kind of get our bearings because we were expecting to go a lot lower today. So on the daily, we came up and I looked at the consequent encroachment of this daily wick. And it seems like we came up, wicked above it, and we're respecting it decently well. So I like that for upside. But that consequent encroachment also falls in line pretty nicely with the consequent, not super nicely, but it does get pretty close to the consequent encroachment of this 4-hour fair value gap. And this 4-hour fair value gap, we seem to be working our way inside. We wicked into it a decent amount, but our body, we came up above consequent encroachment. Consequent encroachment is this red line, and our body is retracing now. So I think what I'm going to look for is I'm still going to try and hold the downside narrative with the idea that this wick will continue to get smaller. I'm not super bought into that downside yet. I want to see how we use the morning's liquidity going into the afternoon session. So I will kind of base our afternoon session off of how we trade the lunch and morning liquidity. Going down to the hourly. So on NQ, we came up to this hourly fair value gap, which is also inside the top half of this 4-hour fair value gap. You can see we closed no bodies inside of it. So that's another, these are just more signatures that I think are lending towards our bearish narrative. I explained this morning how there was an opportunity. We were either going to drop at the open or we're going to come and kind of take out the London session highs and then go lower. I didn't really expect us to spend as much time above these London highs as we have, but we seem to still be respecting bearish PD arrays. I like how we haven't taken this high. And really, I'm just kind of watching. This 4-hour fair value gap is very large and it is a higher time frame, so it's going to take a while for us to navigate it on the 4-hour chart. But for what we have right now, we do seem to be respecting. It is showing some bearish sentiment, not closing above consequent encroachment, only wicking into this hourly, and then, yeah. So going down to the 15, so these are the London highs that we kind of took out. I like how we've been consolidating since lunch. That'll give us a good read on how to use this liquidity. I do think it's interesting that we were wicking above the London lows, came back down, and then went higher. So I'm not completely sold on not reaching this new week opening gap. We're just going to have to watch the intraday price to see. So here's the start of our 2 p.m. session. I'm going to outline these lunch liquidity levels. So that's buy side. And here is our lunch sell side. So the two scenarios we could see is we might come up here and take these equal highs and maybe even this high to go lower. we might to go lower, or we might come down, take this sell side lunch liquidity if we want to go higher. Again, if it does want to go lower, I'd want to see it get really heavy. I think we have set up for that, set up price, for one of those like PM session sell-offs. But I am going to keep a more open mind. I don't want to get too hooked on that outcome or that idea. I'll go over to ES. I like watching both of them to get a fuller picture of what the market wants to do, because the market as a whole is like embodied by more than just ES. It's ES and NASDAQ. And watching them, reading both of their levels can really help you gauge a direction. So ES, we did hold the candle body that we're printing right now is holding above the bottom of this BISI fair value gap. So a close below that would definitely be more bearish. The fact that we're not closing above it, below it, but similar to NQ, the 4-hour fair value gap on ES, we came just shy of the consequent encroachment, and now it seems like this candle body is retracing. So what's going to happen is this is the 10 a.m. 4-hour candle. So coming at 2 o'clock, we will get a new one, and we'll see how that candle wants to print. I like how the body is retracing, so hopefully the next candle will continue that momentum. Similar story on the hourly. I like how we didn't take this high, similar how to on NASDAQ we didn't take that high. We are spending time in this hourly fair value gap. Our bodies are still respecting it, and we'll just see. We also consolidated over the lunchtime, and I want to see how we use the lunch liquidity going into the afternoon session. So that's our lunch buy side. Here's our lunch sell side. Going over to the dollar. So this morning we talked about how the dollar was initially at the open of this candle was respecting this volume imbalance, but now it came down below it. Seems like it came down and kind of tapped in to this fair value gap. So if that is a reason for it to now take this high or even just kind of recede higher for the day, then that could lend well to bearish narrative. A lot of times when you get a big candle like this, it's not uncommon for it to come down to the previous high. I like that. It seems like this candle body doesn't want to close below this swing high, which also coincides with this fair value gap. So that does make sense that the dollar kind of came down for a little bit of a discount. So yeah, let's go. Okay, so it's officially 2. Looking for the 2 p.m. silver bullet. Let's see what our draw on liquidity is. I do like these equal highs. So the big thing I like to do in the PM session though is so whatever liquidity is taken first, there's oftentimes it'll take sell side to engage stops and then run for buy side and vice versa. So I'm curious to see which level it gravitates to first within this range. The reason why I decided to trade NASDAQ versus ES this PM session was because I like how NASDAQ kind of played out with sweeping the London highs early. Sometimes the draws on liquidity for NASDAQ can be a little more obvious. And I feel like since after how this morning went, if today is a less obvious day, I think NASDAQ usually tips its hand a little harder in terms of showing where it wants to go. So we did get a fair value gap form right there. I'm not too sold on that, just because there's been no other obvious evidence that would give us a bias. It does seem like we are kind of, these lows are respecting this fair value gap, but I want a little more information before we try and pick a direction, or otherwise you're just guessing. I mean, we do have the buy side and the sell side liquidity called out. We do have a fair value gap, so like you could just entering on a fair value gap isn't really that high probability because we don't know what the draw on liquidity is right now. It could be the lunch sell side as much as it could be the lunch buy side. So now that we have the new 4-hour candle printing, I want to see if we stay above the wick of the previous one. I can see price probably loosening up after we get through FOMC this Wednesday. I think a lot of people are holding their breath for if the Fed's going to hike rates or not. We're definitely in an interesting time because of how many rate hikes they've done and how well the market has held up. So I feel like it's almost a little jaded at this point. It's not like an increase, everyone's going to freak out, but so we came up, tapped the consequent encroachment of that 4-hour wick. For this, I'd want to see us stay below this consequent encroachment on the 4-hour. If we are going to see bearish prices, lower prices, that's hard because this 4-hour goes all the way till 6, so we won't get the final print of this candle until after today's session. But using it kind of as a projection. Again, so nothing too great too far so far. We're still within the bounds of this high and this low. ES looks like it might be about to take its lunch sell side liquidity. It's getting pretty close. We got the dollar creeping higher. Dollar didn't serve us too well this morning in terms of reading price, but I like how on the hourly, so like this consequent encroachment of the 4-hour wick here also lines up well with the bottom of this hourly fair value gap, which we spent time in, and now we're coming down from it. On the 15-minute, we're still in this consolidation. It's a whole lot of wicks. Okay. Starting to get some movement. It's been a rough 15 minutes so far. Okay, so on the 15-minute, we again tapped into this blue hourly order block. Okay, right back down. We are waiting for our silver bullet setup. Wow, this is like watching paint dry. Oh. 15 handles past 20 minutes. That's our range. Okay, so if you notice on ES, this right here was the ES intermediate term low, whereas on NQ is right here. So right here on ES, it looks like if it does go a little lower, it'll be making a new low, whereas ES, that's on ES, whereas NASDAQ isn't as low. I want to make sure we watch for any kind of decoupling during this session. It burned us once on the morning, so we'll try our best to make sure that it won't happen again in the PM session. But we are just sideways. Whoa. I did not mean to do the 1 second chart. I want the 1 day. Okay. Gonna measure out the consequent encroachment of this daily fair value gap. Okay, so we are at a pretty interesting level, which I guess it makes sense why we're consolidating so much. We got daily BISI consequent encroachment. We got the 4-hour consequent encroachment. We're at a little bit below consequent encroachment of a daily wick. ES looks like it's getting some candle. It's coming down below that low. Okay, we're rolling over. Four-hour candle, just turning bearish. Okay, ES is now printing a lower low. It's also taking the lunch liquidity. I want to see how it behaves. I'm going to go over to ES real quick. So we're taking the lunch liquidity. It could, in theory, it could go and take the buy side. It's funny, again, the candle prints on ES are just looking really like staticky. And I remember I was saying that last week, and it was because I was looking at the September contract, but we're on December now. We switched over. And we're still getting these like really barcodey, like you can notice the opens and the closes aren't lining up well. There's a lot of volume gaps. It's really interesting how ES has been doing that lately. It's the E-mini S&P futures. Huh. Okay, NASDAQ's dropping, ES is dropping. Remember, we're still in this dealing range, which is from this low this high. So we haven't left our range yet. And it looks like it's targeting the sell side liquidity right now. We're now below the consequent encroachment of the daily BISI. So what's going on in my head right now is, so ES already took its lunch sell side. Are we taking the sell side to go higher, or did we actually just spend enough time throughout this whole consolidation in a premium where now it's comfortable going to the discount, which was the targets this morning? Noticing how we came and stopped right at the consequent encroachment of this wick. $15,428.5. This low was $15,428, so it went 2 ticks over that consequent encroachment. We have the dollar still inching its way up. So far for NASDAQ, there's nothing on the 1 minute chart that would have constituted a high probable silver bullet to the downside. Looking on ES, there might have been something right there, but I don't think that would have been very high probability. So we have this 5 minute fair value gap, which looks like it's forming. Then on the lower time frame, the only inefficiency in there is that small one. So on the 5 minute, it's just completely closing in that SIBI. Again, I wouldn't be super comfortable using this as an entry just because it is a fair value gap, but we still haven't had too much context in price for us to understand where the drawn liquidity is right now. Remember, that's always what should be your first concern, is trying to know where are we going. And right now I think it's a toss-up. I mean, you could argue. See, that's why we don't use that. Okay, so ES came below this lunch sell side, and now it's showing some aggressiveness to go higher. So I know NASDAQ came to the consequent encroachment of that wick. I want to see in terms of ES, are we doing it? Are we doing it? Do we take sell side to then go and reach for buy side? Possibly. I actually kind of want to trade ES right now because it did take its sell side, but again, like, I'm getting turned off by this these jumpy candle prints, which, you know, maybe that in itself is enough to say today is a low probability day. I wish NASDAQ had a more defined swing high. It's got a swing high right here, but it's still very back and forth all the way. If it was a little more defined, it would have constituted, you know, a nice shift in structure, but if you look on the 5-minute, we're still just going sideways. So you have that. Interesting. I like that. If you notice on this candle, we came down, closed in, went about a tick over that candle. So we closed in that fair value gap, and then I like the way it reacted off of it. It closed it in just a tick over, continued going higher. So it's kind of showing itself like, hey, I came back down here just to rebalance, just to come down on that. If this candle, if we start to get animated and, you know, we get like a good solid body and create a fair value gap, I would be interested in entering long, only if it shows a willingness to want to really go up. See, that's not a willingness to really want to go up. I was thinking that purely off of the fact that we took the sell side lunch on ES, but now we're coming down. This price action kind of looks a mess, you know. Like, if we were to come down and close a body below this fair value gap, then we're not paying any respect to any PD arrays. You know, sometimes I think it's important, this like getting over this helped me a lot. Like, you're not always supposed to know exactly what's going on. Sometimes you just trading is just about waiting until you do know. And then sometimes you're not, like, it'd be impossible to know what's going on because like nothing in this structure is like giving anything. Like, you can't read this unless this candle body comes up sharply and closes in or above that. Yeah, see, we're not paying any regard to anything. But I'll wait. I'm gonna wait because we did take a loss this morning, and I do want to try and get it back. We have 2 more chances to get it back in this session. But I'm also not going to just take a low probability trade just to get it back. I'd rather wait for another day when it's a high probability, because there's always going to be another day. So you classify this up close candle on the 1 hour as a breaker. We had the low, high, lower low, and then we came up above it. And I am watching these candles kind of wick, just touching the top of it. I don't want to call it a breaker because right now I am opening myself up to the idea of bearish narrative. So if we were looking for bullish price, what I would like to see is us to come down below the sell side, just wick into it, and then kind of run up and take this high just as aggressively as we came down. And I would like that because it would show us wicking into this bullish breaker, and then on the lower time frames it would be kind of shifting. It would be taking liquidity and then shifting structure, a shift in market structure to the upside. If you notice, this was a lower low on the NASDAQ, whereas on ES, it did not make a lower low. So the indices still aren't moving together as nicely as we would want. See, sometimes you want to see that in terms of like witnessing SMT divergence, but if it's happening like frequently in a session, which it has been today, then it's not an SMT divergence. They're like discoupled right now. if you hear a weird noise in the background, it is my girlfriend deciding to vacuum the upstairs. Okay, so again, I would like it if we came down and took this sell side liquidity and then had a sharp retracement up. That would also show 3 tries to take liquidity. I'd like that as like a 3 drives pattern. So let's just wait. We're waiting to see where it really wants to go. You know, I came into the session wanting to short, but I'm just waiting. I want to see how we treat this sell side liquidity because we've just gravitated towards it. ES already took its sell side liquidity. This has been, we're 47 minutes in and we're still within our lunch range. So we might be rolling this into the last hour of trading. We have a rising dollar. That didn't really help us too much this morning. Our shorts this morning. Okay. Okay. Let's see how we close below this. Do we just like wick below it? Do we like get really heavy? It wasn't. It's just making this lower low on ES. Not yet. It's not happening on ES yet. Okay, so I will keep my eye on this. I'm not super convinced yet that we're going lower. And if we do go lower, I could see us getting pretty heavy, but I'm just going to hold off. Okay. Okay, I'm starting to like downside price action. I don't want to enter there just because we had no clear like sweep of liquidity. That did create a fair value gap on the 5-minute. Okay, yeah, we got heavy. Okay, I like shorts now. You could make the argument it's a little too late, but we'll see. Usually if I'm looking for like a sweep of liquidity, like, so we were kind of seeing is it going to take the sell side to go higher, I wouldn't want to see it act like that below the liquidity. Just being patient here, watching how we react and treat this down close candle. I kind of like the idea. I like the idea of being patient and waiting for this 5-minute to form a fair value gap. I think I would enter. I'd enter right there. Because you could call this our PM session silver bullet. Train might leave without us. Yep, it's getting pretty heavy. I could see it going all the way down to these lows, right down here. It's the target we were aiming for this morning, but decided to have other plans. So we'll continue to look for an entry, see if we can maybe get a little bit of like a consolidation, and then maybe at the 315 macro, we can get an entry on the way down. So this low was our target this morning that we tried to short to. We will continue that attempt. So if this sell side is our target, we can only really take entries 50% or higher. So that would disregard this fair value gap. But on the 5 minute over here, you know, it might be better to do this on the 15 minute. If our target is this daily low, BISI low, then we have a lot of room to enter in on, if that truly is our target. Let's see. I wouldn't want to enter right on that fair value gap just because we've moved so much. I can see it coming back up to consequent encroachment of that gap. I'd be a seller there. I'm going to do 1 just because I also could see a deeper retracement. And if we do a deeper retracement and then wait for this 3:15 time, I want to get in on my second order on that deeper retracement. But just like, if you're looking at this 5 minute candle, this is a huge bearish candle after a consolidation. If we were to completely come back up after that, then that's wild. I'm going to take that off for now. I guess I'm going to have a kind of a deeper stop loss, because again, I could see us retracing a lot, but I would add some into that retracement depending on how it looked. So we got this candle body close below consequent encroachment. Again, we had this body close at consequent encroachment. So now on the 5 minute, We're below this hourly fair value gap. We left the 4-hour fair value gap. We left this other hourly fair value gap up here on the hourly too. We just created a 5-minute SIBI, so I wouldn't be surprised if we wanted to like tick into that before going lower. I like how on the hourly candle this body closed below this fair value gap. We just came all the way through it. Something we're going to have to monitor is these wicks. Remember, wicks also act as gaps, and they also have consequent encroachments. So this is always rough when the yellow. I need to change that color. That's what I need to do. How's orange? So 15.382. Is that consequent encroachment? I'll also be watching these wicks. Okay, tapped off it there. You know what? I'll move this right to the top of that. It's right above this fair value gap. I like how our bodies are respecting and staying below a consequent encroachment here. Again, so on the top here, this hourly, I'll turn into a 15-minute, and then if our target, let's say our target is the low, and it's that sell side, our move happened at the top here. So 50% is just about right exactly where we're at right now. So we can take entries at or above 50% from the move, the start of the move to our target. Again, so I'm watching the 5-minute, seeing if it wants to do an institutional order flow into this SIBI before heading lower. I don't like how much time it's spending in this fair value gap, but I like how the bodies are respecting consequent encroachment. And again, we have this inefficiency up here, which is also still in this 5-minute SIBI. So you can't disregard that. I think though, if it was really bearish and it really wanted to hit these lows of the day, it wouldn't get up there. That fair value gap also still below 50% of that 5-minute SIBI. Okay, so we got one body close above. You can see on the 4-hour we came up and we respected a tick over the consequent encroachment of this 4-hour wick, and now we're going lower. We do have a lot of wicks on the charts today, so we're gonna have to be pretty nimble with price. Look at the daily. Okay, so on the 5-minute, we're messing around in this 5-minute SIBI. So I'm gonna expect price to wait until this 315 macro. It can go before then, but I'm going to wait for that. I would also sell one there. So this, I'm expecting this up close candle to support price. We have this 5-minute SIBI, so it could go up there for a deeper discount to come down. I wouldn't want it to go up here though. I want that to be open. It shouldn't need that much of a retracement into this 5-minute SIBI. Okay, we're in there. So next thing I'm going to be doing is going to be watching. There was no fair value gap formed within this 1 minute to the upside. I like that. Okay, I want to see our candle bodies respect this. I meant to move that there because that is the candle that started creating this fair value gap. It is also above the 50% of this up closed candle. Okay, we like that. I value us respecting, like our candle bodies respecting this fair value gap on this 1 minute more than getting nervous about touching this one, just because it plays to our higher time frame narrative. So this stop has a fair value gap. We have a volume imbalance right here, and then we have this up close candle. So we have 3 theoretical PD arrays that it would have to go through after already going through this. So we got 4. We have this, that, sorry. We have this SIBI, we have this SIBI, we have this volume imbalance here, and then we have this up close candle. So if price does come from my stop, I'm okay with that because we just violated a lot of bearish PD arrays. And the stop is below the consequent encroachment of this 5-minute SIBI, which it can still go above that. It could probably even go above it and wick, but I don't want to take on any more risk than that. I'd rather take the loss and then re-enter somewhere else. Okay, so these candle bodies are respecting this. Take a quick look at ES. Seems like the dollar's dropping a little bit. Okay, like that. Get into the green. I would like to see this used as an inversion. So when this was coming up, I liked how there was no fair value gaps formed, because if you can think of fair value gaps, it is, and ICT said this, I don't know if I'm going to be able to quote him verbatim. Fair value gap is a deferment for price to come back to later. So I like how we saw no fair value gaps here, because that means that if it wanted to go up, it could come back and use those as discounts with an intention to go and sell at a premium. Versus right here, these were left open with the intention to come back to for premiums to then sell at a discount. Price really needs to drop now, so this whole narrative can show to be true. Okay, I don't like that. I don't want a body to close above this fair value gap. Okay, so we now crossed into 315, the 315 macro. Let's see if that is going to be the time window that sends us to these lower prices. Getting pretty close to the stop. It's fine. So we just started this new. Okay, so we got stopped out. We can take one more trade today. For the 15-minute, we just entered this SIBI. I'm still pretty bearish. On price. Oh no. Let's see if we get a close over this volume imbalance. Just watching for a little more context. I think now that we enter into that 15-minute, if it is actually going to take these lows, it's probably going to do it right about now. But I think that would be confirmed with taking out this low. So if you notice, we've yet on the 5-minute, we've yet to make a lower. What's happening right now is we're forming this lower high after this drop. That's usually the problem with moves this big. Is it opens up a lot of possibilities. Okay, so I'm open to taking one more trade for this session. I want to see if we take out this low right here. If you notice on the 5-minute, our candle bodies are still closing below consequent encroachment of the 5-minute SIBI. We printed a 15-minute candle that went into the 15-minute SIBI. So if we kind of start to roll over and get a shift in structure on the 1-minute, so we're going in with the intention that this right here is the swing high. This is the lower high after this drop. Okay, I like that. I want us to close below it. Okay, we got the close. I guess it's this dropping dollar that's really causing us. Which we were on sides with the dollar this morning and it didn't want to help us. Still just watching. We did get the close below this low, but looking for an entry. Well, that answered that question. Okay. We'll be entering. Look for a fair value gap that we could possibly enter on. Nothing's really jumping out right now. If we were to take this high, I would expect us to go a lot higher. And then on the 5 minute, this would be a bullish order block. But that's if we take this high. You see the discoupling a little in NASDAQ and ES. So ES came down a lot lower here and took out that swing low. Dollar came up, made a really sharp high, and now it's retracing quite a bit. So dollar's dropping quite a bit. Gonna go over a look at ES. ES was able to make it back down to the bottom of that daily. BISI seems to be giving a little bit of support. So we were waiting, we wanted to see that low get taken out for an entry short, but it never really gave us any kind of fair value gap before retracing up to here. And the way it came down was just a little, there wasn't enough displacement here. So what I would have wanted to see was us to take this low out with a lot of displacement, come back up, enter on a fair value gap, then to actually go lower. I was hoping that my plan was for that to happen in a similar move to this, the way this candle dropped, because it would have been attacking the sell side liquidity. We have yet, I mean, it could happen. I guess this morning was pretty gross price action. So I'm not surprised that the afternoon is in a similar fashion. I think we're still, candle bodies are still respecting 50% of this 5-minute SIBI. So it's kind of a similar to this morning where we're just moving sideways with nothing super high probability. We came up, entered on this 15-minute SIBI of this fair value gap, did it here. It could very well just kind of trend sideways into the close. Last 30 minutes of the session. I will enter something short just because, you know, we've been claiming this sell side all day, and it hasn't proven to us that it doesn't want to go there. It's just the way it's getting there is really not ideal. We have the dollar looking like it might be trying to make some higher highs. ES is kind of making it's making a lower low. It's making equal lows with its wicks, but we'll see how its bodies close. We'd want to see it start to get heavy here if we were going for this liquidity. And sell 2 there. Take the stop right up there. Let's see what happens. I'm going to move the stop right above the consequent encroachment of this wick of the up close candle. I was hoping to see the dollar start to take out these highs. If it starts to continue to go lower, that won't be ideal. So we have satisfied a few downside requirements needed for the downside. We wicked into this 15-minute SIBI. We respected the consequent encroachment of this 5-minute SIBI. This is always a pain to see, these 3 candles on the 5-minute. That is very annoying. Just a high resistance day. showing not a whole lot of willingness to have any particular direction. Like, it would have been really hard to be in this move. You would have just had to been, that would have been a big guess. Like, especially with our models. I mean, if you're playing like retail breakout, you could have caught that move, but not with our models. So don't be upset for not being in a move, because especially if like you don't see any kind of entry that you would have made sense for you, then you're just kind of gambling at that point. Okay, we'll see if going into the close it wants to run for our liquidity targets. It's been a pretty choppy market all day. Even on this one, I mean, I was giving it a lot of room. That was a pretty big stop, because I knew that the market was kind of acting a fool, and it could have retraced, and it went just like a tick over my stop. I mean, we entered right around here actually, so even if we had our stop, say at like the top of this up close candle, we would have been, it would have been a very emotional ride back down to break even. So ES is, it's wicking below these lows, but it's not getting any meaningful closes. But that's also another SMT. It's a little decoupling. NASDAQ isn't making the lower low again, so first target is this low down here, and then this sell side down here. I'm going to move this to break even. Like I said, I want to see it get heavy here if we were going to go down there. We already took 2 losses today, so if we were to come back up, that would just, if we were to come back up here, I mean, we already took this low, we took this low. If we were to come back up here, then we're just in some kind of seek and destroy pattern. If you notice on the 5-minute, what it did was it came up and tapped the body of this up close candle, which you could kind of call an order block if you wanted. If we were to be seen down, like if we wanted to go down, that would have been an order block. So this is clearly just in seek and destroy. No rhyme or reason to the movement. I'm guessing it's going to be a pretty big loss on the day. Let's see. Yeah, we took the account into the negative. So we had 2 big losses today. But again, I'm not super worried about that. We didn't destroy the account, which is anytime you have a losing day, like it's mitigating loss. So we didn't destroy the account today. ICT himself took a loss this morning. Conditions weren't the best. So the mindset we have to go now is, we're just waiting for, and we also haven't landed. Like I remember we opened the account with some pretty good days, but we haven't landed any like really solid runners yet, because I know last week the market was chopping up before CPI on Wednesday, and then we have FOMC this week. It's like actually the first 2 losses I took on the account were the Monday and Tuesday before CPI, and now I'm having the third losing day is the Monday before FOMC. But the point, I say all that to say that as long as our losses aren't destroying us, we're really just holding off for some good runners and some good trades. So yeah, so this is the account. 3 trades today. That's the history. Not too worried about it. Again, we're kind of running this demo account with the idea of with the rules of the prop firm challenges. Again, I need to go look into some and figure out which one we are going to trade further down the line, and then maybe I can be a little proactive and I'll set the quote loss limit that we'll be trying to abide by in the demo, and then eventually the actual live funded account. So looks like we came up to mean threshold of this order block, wicked right above it. See if it wants to take the sell side now. Yeah, it's definitely in like seek and destroy conditions, because you can see when we go up to certain levels, it doesn't have a willingness to like really run and move away from them and attack like any kind of meaningful liquidity. I mean, if you just disregard this drop right here, this was just untradeable price action between 11:30 and then right at 2:50 we had this drop, and then more untradeable price action. So rough day. But we have tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, guys.